Sick. All right. You ready to start this or what?
Yeah, sure.
All right, John Emberson. Second time? How many times have you been on? Once? Only once? Twice?
No.
No, you've been on twice. You've been on twice.
Twice, yeah.
Twice before.
Well, if you want to count the very first time when you weren't
Yeah.
actually serious.
Well, what do you
When
mean?
we're upstairs in Portland, remember that?
Yes. I remember. That was the first episode.
Yeah.
That was that I still have it.
Do you really?
I think so. I don't see why I wouldn't have gotten rid of it. I don't think.
I just remember when we were doing it, I was like, I already know that the recording on this is going to be absolutely awful. Because it was in the middle of us and an echoey room in the freaking top floor.
Yeah. No, I know. I'm trying to make. I've upgraded the sound quality at least. I try to give the highest fidelity I can. I try to offer the highest fidelity I can for this podcast now, but times have changed with me and getting all my gear stolen, so I've had to I've had to adapt.
Yeah. All you can do is move on.
No, it's fine.
And overcome.
Yeah, no, obviously that's the Marine Corps motto, or one of them. Cool. So, John Emberson, why don't you give a little backstory? Who you are, what you do, where you are in life. Big question.
Yeah.
For those listeners who aren't already very familiar with you, because I have very dedicated, loyal fans.
Yeah. So my name's John, and Evan and I have been friends since sophomore year. Did we decide? Was it
freshman year?
Freshman year? Yeah, freshman year.
Over 10 years.
Over 10 years, and to say long story short, we obviously shared a lot of the same ideology. So naturally, we moved around a lot, and we did a big trip together, and I feel like the past 2 years have been the real start of what life is as an adult, and kind of been moving all over the place right now. I did a trip with Evan through the States, and then we did a Europe trip. I did that with my girlfriend at the time, and then we came back, and then we lived in Colorado for about a year, which was one of the episodes. And then after Colorado, I just moved back from Maine, and now I'm here and deciding whether I want to stay here or not.
Yeah, in Maine, all around Portland, Maine. Wait, so we never did an episode in Colorado. We did an episode in Italy.
Italy, yeah, I'm sorry. Italy. Yeah, that's right. Oh.
I was thinking about doing an episode in Colorado, but I didn't have anything.
Yeah, well, you were out there. Didn't you end up doing? You did do a podcast when you were out there, though, didn't you, in Denver?
I did. I interviewed the psychedelic researchers who live in Fort Collins.
Do you still talk to them?
No, I don't talk to them at all, but they're super cool. I'll put the link to that episode in the description. But that was a great episode. I'm really happy I did that. They're super nice. But yeah, no, they're doing their own thing, exploring the mind.
Pretty cool stuff, man.
Yeah, super interesting. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of backstory there. It's so hard to cover everything because I feel like I've been having to do a lot of covering a lot of ground in my life in as succinctly and as I possibly can, and it's not something that it's something that's really difficult. It's I'll talk to people and then try to give what do you do? What have you been doing? How did you get to Hungary? Because I live in Hungary, and then I'm oh, it's a long story if you want me to recapitulate that. But it's been great. Thanks for being back on.
Yeah, of course.
And hopefully this is gonna be the consistent thing now every Tuesday.
Yeah, no, I'd love it. I'd love it. I think it'd be good.
Yeah, for both of us for sure. But yeah, so I'm in Hungary. You're in Maine.
Yep.
So I wanted to talk about. New Gloucester. Okay.
Yeah.
New Gloucester.
It's about 35 minutes from Portland.
Okay. New Gloucester. I barely even met her.
It's actually really nice here, dude. Like the places around
I'm
here. There's
sure.
a huge farm that's like right up the street from us, and I think it's like a landmark place now, but it's absolutely gorgeous. I'll have to take pictures and send them to you. Like
I'm sure.
you would appreciate it. It's like modern farm. It's not like old school. It's like this big grass rolling field and
Oh,
this like gigantic house on the top of it with these white picket fences all around it. It's
nice.
perfect. It's like straight out of a movie, dude. It's beautiful.
Uh, yeah, well, Maine's just so nice. I mean, that's the beauty of Maine. That's the perks of living in Maine. It's
I
just so
know.
nice. It's
Well,
natural
there's
beauty.
also, dude, what I've noticed since I've been here is there's so much opportunity for stuff because it's still
Yeah.
like there's still a lot of fresh land per se, not necessarily land, but like fresh. I don't know. There's not. It's not like conjulated with all the like city life stuff, which I feel like gets eaten up by people that come in from all over the place, and it still feels like very like there's a lot of opportunities here that like you
Yeah.
could start off like pretty easily because they
Nice.
have
Yeah.
like there's not much here, like as soon as go outside of Portland, like you can tell there's just like not a whole lot. There's not a lot of businesses and stuff like that. It's very very small businesses.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think that's dude, start a horse ranch or something.
You could
Start
like that's the
a.
thing, dude. Is like if you really came out here with like some crazy idea of like what you want to do and you have a skill set, like you could probably make it work. Like that's the cool
Yeah.
part about it. As long as you had the money and effort and skills into it, like you can make something work out here because there's just
Totally.
there's a clientele for everything here because there's not
Yeah.
much else.
Wow. That's cool though. I think that's the thing with Maine is like there is that, but it's an underrated state. I feel like because nobody really goes there, but I think it's underrated because of the weather and people can't handle the weather. And
Yeah,
if you can't
it's
handle
true.
the harsh weather, then
Yeah, yeah,
I mean it's just like you
yeah. I
probably shouldn't
know.
be there.
I think for the most part too is another thing, and you know this too, but like you could tell that like the people that like there's obviously there's two different people that live here. I feel like there's the people that like live here that are like the Mainers and they never leave, and
Yeah,
then you have people that are still technically like from here and live here, but as soon
yeah,
as the wintertime comes, they go to another like house or like
yeah,
stay with family or something like that. So it's
yeah.
funny because there I feel like that there is a split. There's like people that are dedicated to living here, but even the ones that like are Mainers, they leave
Hmm.
during the winter. They don't even stay
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Well, we'll see what you become, huh?
Yeah, probably leave for the winter. We'll see. I talked to
So,
Logan, which was good.
oh, sick. Yeah, our friend Logan, who we haven't talked to in a while. But so cool, John. So I know I texted you. I wanted to talk about time. I've been thinking about time.
Hmm.
Um, time to figure out our life. Time
Yeah.
to get our shit together. Time to time's passing, and it's not passing any slower. We're
No.
always continually moving forward in some sort of direction. I've been reading a book. It's by a philosopher named Henri Bergson, and he is it's very difficult to read about like the nature of time, and I know it's been interesting me a lot over the course of I'd say this past maybe past 6 months, but especially now I've been thinking about time within the past couple of weeks more and more because of the fact that well, we don't know what it is, and we don't really know where it's going, and so I guess this is something that I kind of want to talk to you about is like where do you think our time in space is meant to like represent for us? I think we're kind of thinking about things. We're always in our minds about certain ideas for the future, or ruminating on the past or whatever. But what do you think that this like moment or our experience of time is supposed to represent for us, and how we're supposed to think about it on this journey?
Um, I think I mean they always say that I feel like uh, we as humans created the time, and I think I always use it as a tool. It helps me formulate things in my life because if there was no sense of time, there'd be no urgency for anything.
Mm.
Like there'd um, I forgot who said it, but there was a scientist who was saying that like if we just lived forever, then there'd be no like urgency for anything. Like you didn't have to do anything at all for the rest
Yeah.
of time. But like I think that kind of goes back into like what time means is like because we have this tool that we can understand of what time is, it
Mm-hmm.
helps us like further like what we need to be doing with the like short time that we do have here because
Mm-hmm.
time for me is the tool of like how long I have and like obviously no one knows like but we can have a good a good uh like base of what that might look like. And I think
Yeah.
for me, it helps that like I'm at the time of my life of like, well, I need to start making the bigger decisions, and if I didn't have that, I don't think there would be any sort of motivation to like start doing the things now, like right now. Like if I didn't really have any tool to base that off of, like why would I have to do it
Yeah.
anytime soon if I just didn't need to do it now, if I didn't
Yeah.
have a short amount of time to do those things. So I
Do
think
you
for me it's
feel?
like a tool.
Yeah. Do you feel like you are? So it's like a motive. It's like a motivation tool for you then.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Definitely. Yeah. I feel the same way. Yeah. I think time is. Well, actually, time's ticking now because I have to reset this Zoom meeting in 10 minutes. But oh, time.
Time.
Yeah, no, I think time for me is similar. It's the same way. I always think of it as a motivating factor, and I think about this in relation to like death as well. It's like it's coming at some time. It's like it's at some
Right.
point in our this cycle of like existence is not this existence anymore, or whatever it means. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily not this existence. It's just how we know it right now is not this
Right.
anymore. whatever it looks like, and so there's this pressing motivation for me to kind of get things done while I have it. And
Yeah.
and I think for a lot of people that can be, I think it can be immensely motivating if you have a certain mindset and a certain frame around it. But I think it can also be really scary for a lot of people because it's just this constant ticking clock, and you're just like it's like it's like an hourglass that's just been turned upside down, and then you just see the grains of sand trickling down, but you have zero clue how many grains of sand are left. And
Right.
so you're just like in the blind every day. You're just like, I don't know, but while I'm here, I guess I'll
Yeah.
make the best.
Right. Right.
And I think that for me is like it's motivating, but it's motivating, but at the same time it's also terrifying.
Yeah. Of course.
Um, but for me, it's like, well, how much within this unknown amount of time can I do? How much can I do, and how much can I see, and how much can I experience? Because everything now has just become this idea of me trying to experience as much as I can with the unknown amount of time that I have. Um, and I know not everyone's like that. Some people view it differently. But I think that's kind of a general idea about like what people do, and I think it looks different for everybody. Like what they want, what they feel is like the best use of their time. Because for you and I, we view it differently than somebody else who wants to like really slow down and try to like take some time with some of their goals and whatever they have going on in their life that they think will bring them into some sort of better state or some sort of different avenue for their life. And I think that's good. I think it's good to slow down. I think recently, like you and I have been more in the mindset of like slowing down and like trying to establish ourselves and trying to get like something set up for ourselves more solidly in order to like base ourselves in a certain area so we can also do other things that we want to do that aren't necessarily slow. And so I think that's why it's important to kind of think about, for me at least, what I'm supposed to be doing with the time that I have.
Mhm.
But is it so for you when you think of like slowing down, like what does that mean to you? What does that look like?
Well, I think there's different parts of your life because I feel like I've done the slowing down before, like when I was younger, and it was different, but it was still like a sense of slowing down, which was like kind of what happened after high school. It was like,
Mm,
okay, I have this period of time where like I'm still able to stay at my parents and like really figure out what I want to do as far as like my career. And then, I quickly realized that that's not what I needed to focus on at the time. Like, I wanted to go and travel and like experience the things. And now I'm like brought back to that mindset in a like completely different way, but on the same premise. And so I
mm,
feel like slowing down is, if we're talking about as far as like slowing down time, it's not necessarily that you're slowing anything down. It's just your, I guess, your mindset of like how you use your time is differently. Because in
yeah.
when I was on the road, it was more of like I want to get as much done as I can in one day and see the most
Mm-hmm.
I can, because like I'm here, I'm doing it now, and like I
Mm-hmm.
don't want that to stop. But like for me now, it's like obviously I still want to utilize my time, but I have the goals that I'm going to be reaching is a lot further away that I want
Mm-hmm.
to easily work my way up to, versus like, oh, I can achieve that goal today, right now. Like I can go and see the
Yeah.
city today. Like I'm going to do that,
Mm,
versus, oh, I want to open my own shop or whatever. Okay, well, how do I get there? Okay, I get a small job between then, and then get another automotive job, work that for a couple years, and then maybe then's the time to like really ask myself if I'm ready to, open my own shop or whatever. So I think
yeah.
the slowing down doesn't necessarily take away that you're not utilizing your time. It's just you're utilizing your time differently. And um, I think that's what's cool too, is because like I know that I need a time now to just like have the normal days like today, where it's just like kind of chill, go do my errands or whatever. And like it doesn't need to be filled with like, oh, I need to go like do something, I need to go like to an event or something, or like go into
Mm-hmm.
town and like talk to a bunch of people. And if that's a sense that I feel like I need to do, then I'll do it. But it doesn't necessarily have like an urgency as much as it was before, because I'm in a place where it's okay. Like I'm gonna
Yeah.
have plenty of these days to come. Or
Yeah.
who knows that. But
Yeah.
yeah. So I feel like the it doesn't necessarily change the way that you look at time. It's just a different mindset that you have versus being in a different scenario that I had in my life. So um, I think also too, like if we're talking about that, like it's nice because I feel like maybe it's just for me, but I would probably argue for most people is that time is a good like reality check. It's like I
Mm,
feel like I know that I do, like I get into these like certain mindsets where I'm just like kind of coasting, and I'm like,
mm,
and sometimes it's good for me, like it's a place that I need to be, of just like kind of coasting through life. But then you like really like come back to reality of like, oh, well, I can't just be here for like the rest of my life, or like I
mm.
can't keep doing this thing for the rest of my life. And like, okay, well, how
Yeah.
much time do I want to spend where I'm at right now? Like,
Yeah.
and you start really thinking about it, and that's based off the time that you have. Like
Yeah.
time is what brings you back to like, oh, okay, I don't have like all the time in the world to just keep doing this like thing that I don't actually want to do, or maybe it's not the end goal and it's okay for right now, but it like eventually needs to change. So I think it's nice because I feel like for me time is like a good reality uh checker of like bringing you back to where you need to be
Yeah.
mentally.
Yeah, because you kind of you're like aware of that it's not infinite, and you just become more aware of how you're spending it, and it doesn't mean
Right.
that like the way you're spending it right now is necessarily harmful because it's what you need right now. It's just not necessarily how you're always going to want to spend your time, and so you have to begin
Right.
thinking about that. Um, Let me look here. I've had what I haven't done recently, which I wanted to get back to, is all these questions I had written down. So we're gonna pick a question and we're gonna see what you think about it.
Okay.
Um, where do memories go when you're not thinking about them?
Somewhere in the brain, I would assume. I don't know. um I don't know. It goes in the ether of all the other stuff that I have no idea where it goes.
Give me the
That's a good question, though.
answers. Give me
I
the
know.
answers.
Well, I mean, obviously they have to be stored somewhere, because whenever you like want to start thinking about them, they're still there and they never go away. You know.
Yeah.
Um, I do think though that if you don't exercise that memory a lot, that you probably could lose it on some aspects.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
you might not know the as descriptive of the memory as you once did when you're obviously when the memory was happening. But I feel like if you do exercise it, if you talk about it a lot or like think about it a lot, um, it helps. So I would say that it's even if you're not thinking about them or talking about them, it's held somewhere. But if you don't utilize it or bring it back up, it would slowly fade.
Yeah.
So wherever that is, I think it's still important that you have to like continue to think about those things or talk about them, or it kind of just starts slowly fading away.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, right, where it's like you always say it's like you have a bucket, and it's like you have your luck bucket or whatever. I would say it's kind of the same analogy. Is like you have your all these like things in your head of what you want to remember, what you can remember, and if you're not exercising one of them, you have to take one out to replace another.
Yeah. No, that's Dom always says that. He gave me that analogy.
The
It's like
luck
you're
bucket.
always
It's
constant.
hilarious.
You have two buckets. One of them's your luck bucket, one of them's your experience bucket, and you're just
Yeah.
constantly taking out of your luck bucket and
Yeah.
throwing in your
Yeah.
experience
Exactly.
bucket. But one day, you have no idea when it'll happen, but you're gonna run out from the luck bucket.
Yeah. That's pretty funny. I like that.
Yeah, um, the luck
But yeah,
bucket.
I mean, it's kind of the same, but not so much on the same aspect. But yeah, I would say that wherever it goes, I think that it doesn't necessarily just stay there.
Yeah,
It doesn't, because if there's memories that I even have that that maybe I don't talk about as much, and like I can't remember as well as I used to
yeah.
because I don't actually like exercise that the thought of like remembering that stuff.
Yeah, it's like languages, people learn a language when
Yeah,
and then
that's
they
true.
forget it because, like I haven't spoken that language in 20
Right.
years. And it's like, but then obviously like your native language you'll never forget. But,
Right.
except me, I forget mine all the
Yeah,
time.
well, we're
Constantly.
special.
And that is how I know that we are special.
Yeah. No,
No.
but it is true though. Like that's the thing too. Is like you can even argue like people like Chase is a good example. He like knew Spanish really really well in high school because
Oh,
he
really?
took the classes, and then I'm pretty sure he took a Spanish class in college too, like really early on, and like he would speak fluently with like his friends and stuff like that. But he stopped, and like I ask him now, I'm like, do you still like? And he's like, no. But like he'll still like if someone goes
Yeah.
up and asks him a question, like he can still kind of articulate it, but you could tell that he's like not nowhere near close to where it used to be.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to see that it's like even if he hasn't exercised it in like years, if someone came up to him and like he'd be able to get by still. So
Yeah.
it's like it doesn't fully fade away, but if you don't exercise it, you're gonna lose a lot of it.
Yeah, your stepbrother Chase. I mean, but that's Chase though. He's smart. I didn't
So
know.
that's true. Yeah,
We're dumb. We're all dumb.
I know. I know. Uh,
No. Yeah. No.
he's on another
He's
level
on
now.
another level. Yeah. No. I think you're right. I think that's. But it doesn't answer where it goes. I didn't think like
I
where
don't
it
know.
goes somewhere. I mean, it's interesting because it's like something you recall. It's like when you're recalling memory. It's like this because we don't know what when you think about what your thoughts are, they appear in your mind and they just seem to be there. It's like it's just like it's just there. And then but they're there, they come and pass by, and then they fade, and then another one comes, and we're just constantly aware or not aware of these thoughts that come by, but that we have. It's like we don't choose them. It's like there's no
Right.
choice in the matter of like whether or not you think of like that fucking one memory you had years ago that got you really upset, or you know I don't know, some like bigger memories of like relatives passing away or something like that. You know what I mean? And it's just like, what triggered that? Why did it come into my mind? What happened, and why is it there? And I think that's something like I find a special interest in, especially interesting because, I mean, I'm really, um, I really like to think about like, these conscious, like questions on consciousness and like meditation and philosophy of the mind and stuff like that. And so I think that's some of the most interesting things to think about. But it's like at the end of the day, it's like this constant mystery at our backs. You know what I mean? It's just like, why are these things here? And we are not really aware of where they're going or where they come from. But I think that's why I think it's so interesting to like pay attention to them, because they affect everything we do in our life. You know, what the thoughts that we pay attention to are the thoughts that dictate our life. They're, you know, the ones that allow us to think in a certain way and to act in a certain way. And if we aren't paying attention to them, then we're just letting them control us. You know what I mean? Same thing with our emotions, and same thing with, you know, that with you know, negative thoughts and negative feelings towards other people or other, you know, not so healthy mindsets or attitudes. If we let those just be and let them control us, and we never really think about where they're coming from and how they're actually affecting us, then we're just constantly on a cycle that is being dragged along by our constant unawareness.
I have two things about that. I feel like number one, you said it, is like, I think maybe an important thing to like realize or think about is that like what you said is like they kind of just appear, like they're just there, you know. But it's the same thing as they just how they just randomly appear, they disappear too, and then it's on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And it's like there's a sense of like balance between that, where it's like, you know, if you're looking so much further into like how did that come up in the first place, and it's like, well, how did it just leave like right after that, you know? Like that's it's equally of like it's just this thing that happens and then it moves on to another thing. And I think because of that, the other thing is that I think we are able to act upon those things. So, like we all have like, you know, crazy thoughts about what anything and everything, you know, and it's like we get to choose if we put that into action. And I think that's the beautiful part about it, because like we all have, like I said, the dark thoughts, and some people have them more than others, and you know, but you still have the ability to choose to act upon those thoughts versus not to act upon, or maybe to like self um, diagnose of like why you're thinking these things, and like you know, do that yourself, and versus like, you know, lash out to somebody else or lash out in your own ways or self-harm or anything like that. Is I think that we all go through the ways of that. It's up to you if you have the ability to act on those things. And I think that, like I said, it goes back to, I think it's equal parts of like it's these random things that are kind of there, that are all there all the time, and you can analyze them, but it's up to you whether you want to act on those things, or if you want to continue thinking about those things, or you want to investigate why you're having these thoughts, or you want to put it to action and do those things. It's like we have the ability to do that, even if it's these things that like we don't necessarily have control of.
Yeah.
We do have the ability to act upon those things.
Yeah. But where does that ability come from, John? And that's, I don't want to get into the free will debate, but it is a question that I want to save that for another time, because that is a very big question. It's like, we have the ability, but where does the ability come from? You know, it's like, why, what is it that says I'm going to do this and not going to do that? You know what I mean? I'm going to listen to these thoughts, but not listen to those. What is that? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I definitely, I think it varies person to person, man. I know this is a whole other debate, but I'd like to think for myself is I have the ability to make the extremes, and because I'm able to make the extremes, I have a sense of self of like, oh, I'm the one controlling these like thoughts of doing it. Ultimately, I am my own person. I'm gonna make the decisions that I was just meant to be because I am who I am and I think the way I think.
Yeah.
But I think it's nice to know that I have the ability to make extreme actions or thoughts or whatever. And I think based off of that fact, it's more comforting of like, all right, well, I do have a little bit of control on it. Maybe it's not fully, but like I said, I think it goes back to how you analyze your own thoughts and like what you do about them in
Mm-hmm.
your head is basically the person that you're choosing to be.
Yeah. Interesting. No, yeah, I think it's like, I mean, I think it's the thing is like how you analyze it personally is different, yes, but what makes you the person that analyzes them differently? Like, what makes you the person that analyzes them this way and another person analyzes them another? Like, why? What is that individuality? And I think there's such a big question mark there. I think in a lot of ways, like people, when they think about this, they're like, oh, yeah, it's settled. We have no free will. Like that's it. And then because like where is it? You know what I mean? And I get that. I get it. But then there's this sense that like, um, and I don't know if I could justify this logically, and that is a question. But it's like there's this also the sense that there is this. It's beyond like a sense of self. There's just this inner thing that is just making a decision. You know what I mean? But it's like I don't know how to. It's hard to put that inner thing that makes the decision into words because it is just this inner being that believes that they can make a choice and they can do one thing and not the other, and it feels so strong.
Yeah.
And I think about it often. It's like, well, why is it so strong? Because it's for like there's a purpose there behind it. You know what I mean? And when you think about this logically, and especially like philosophical circles, like it's just very it's hard. You can't really explain it logically. Um, and
I
I don't
think
know.
that's the answer to it though is like the way I look at it, and I have very little to talk on this aspect, but I think it's the simplicity of like we will never understand because there's more that's going on in the chemistry of our brain that we there's going to be no tools or words or sense of thoughts that we're going to have to understand what that is.
Yeah.
And of course we're going to want to explore that and understand what it is, and we might get closer to that truth, but
Hmm.
I don't think we have the ability to fully understand those things. And I think that's the simplicity of it is like
Yeah.
it's like we if we look at like, oh well, why am I the way that I am, and it's like, well, let's look back in nature. Like we've come a crazy way of like becoming these like self-thinking humans that are going around the earth, but like we've had a lot of history. We've come from a very far past, and it's like it started very simply. It started with a very tiny little cell, and it's like that was simple. It was very simple. There's no like, like I said, I'm not the scientist to be telling like what it is, but it's like I would assume it's very simple in nature to be a single cell, and like that's where we came from. So it's like now we're so much more complex, and like the chemistry in our brains is like so much more intuitive that
Yeah.
like of course it's going to be hard to understand those things. And I think that also comes into like why people act differently is the chemistry in our brains are going to be different and alter in different ways from one to another, like, and that could be the simple explanation of why we think certain things, but we'll never fully understand where that's coming from. I
Hmm.
think that's the beauty part about it is, and of course we're going to always want to question it and understand it fully, but I think it's so much more complex on that matter as well. So it's like, it's weird because it's like, it's a complex thing, but it's also like a simple thing. The way I look at it, it's like a simple of like, this is who we are. And it makes sense to me because of like all the things that have happened to come to where we are, but it's something that I'm never going to be able to explain.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to kind of the idea that like everything can be explained by some scientific logical explanation.
Right.
And I think the more I think about some of these things, I don't like. I feel like I used to think that more, but now it's like it just so like we have to admit our um, our we have to admit to ourselves just how um, unaware of existence that we are.
Oh yeah,
And we're
that's
like,
true.
no, it can be explained all this one way. This is the only
Yeah,
way
right,
that it can
right,
be explained.
right.
And and I'm like, but what if about not, because of how small we are and how limited we
Right.
are? Like, what
Exactly.
about, what if we just, what if that's one way of explaining certain things? You know what I mean? It's like, what if that's
Yeah.
one way to explain a
Right.
certain aspect of reality? And that's
Right.
in a very useful way to explain reality. Um, but it's not the only way to explain it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But it's the
Because
only way we have. It's the only ability that we have to explain
and
that way.
it's the best way that we found. You know what I mean? And it's like, so
Right.
it makes sense. Like, if everything can explained logically, then logically, scientifically, like through this like rigorous standards, which are great and obviously we should continue to do this. We
Of
shouldn't
course.
stop.
And we will.
But there are questions that are beyond this, it
Hmm.
seems, and they are just so far above us in our minds
Hmm.
and our mental conception of anything. Like, we can't even conceive of what we
Yeah.
can't conceive
Right.
of. It's just, that's by definition inconceivable. And so,
Right.
like, to think that like everything has to be explained this one way, I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense, and then like we can already, and this is something that always trips me out. It's like we can already see it in many ways. Like, we can explain a chair, like, by its particles, by its molecules and its atoms and quarks and whatever that make up a piece of matter. And then,
Right.
but we don't know what that is. Like, we don't know what a what a quark is in terms of like what it is, like, as a, why is it there, like, what is that? We don't know. It's just like
Yeah.
anything. It's like the computer. Yeah, we can explain how we made it. We can explain it by physics, how it comes to be, but we can't. This is like the fundamental question that
Yeah.
is just absent in so much of um, fundamental physics. Is like, we can't explain what it is. We just don't know what things are.
Right.
um, and so we can explain by what it does, how it works, and how it affects things, and that's all very, very, very important and way above me. I'm not claiming to know physics at all, not even a little bit. But it's like,
Yeah.
but it's like there are just things like we don't know what it is. Well, yeah, it's there, but we don't know what it is. It's just life, like, it just is. You know what I mean? And we're
Yeah.
all we're all made up of the same things, and I think that's the craziest thing. It's like, in terms of like particles and fundamental matter, we're all made up of the same thing. Like, the computer and me and you,
I
we
know.
all came from the same spot. We all came from the same. We're just formed differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's a trip.
I think it's the beautiful part about it, man, is it's like if we did know, like it almost seems like we wouldn't be who we are if we did know.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it would be like I don't even. It's a whole nother mindset to have to like know the answers to like all of that, because like I feel like at who we are as people is we're just naturally curious and we want to use the tools to understand things
Yeah.
further. But the fact is like there is like you said is like there's this overwhelming feeling of like we don't actually know. We know very little, and it's like that's kind of the beautiful part about it because it's like maybe we'll never know, but
Mm.
like that's kind of what the mysterious like kind of underlying question is in our lives is like, that is what it is. It's kind of like you take it how you want to take it, and that's the fact is we're probably never going to figure that out, at least in our lifetime.
Yeah. Maybe the AI will, though.
Yeah. But the problem is like I feel like even if we found the tool to figure out what those answers were, we don't have the like capacity to like fully wrap our like what you're saying. It's like we don't have the capacity to fully understand what that means. Like there's things that are inconceivable that
Yeah.
even if we were told in a certain way, like this is what that means, you're like that means gibber. I don't know what that means
Yeah,
to
exactly.
like I will never fully understand that.
Yeah.
You can grasp things, and there's people that are going to be a lot smarter out there that can maybe get a better grasp on it, but is there going to be a person that understands it fully?
No.
How are we supposed to know?
No, yeah, yeah, I
How are we
know.
supposed to know that that one guy is right in the way he's thinking, you know?
Even the smartest person that ever lived is still a person and a human and still
Exactly.
like not,
Yeah,
you know what I
right.
mean? And so,
And that's our fault. That's the fault that we have, is that we always are going to make mistakes. And I think that's the beautiful part about it. I'm happy that we have that, because like I said, if we didn't, it's something that I can't even think about if we're just like knew everything all the time. It would
yeah,
be, I think we would just function differently, you know?
yeah,
And that's the thing to keep in mind, is that even the smartest person is going to make mistakes too.
yeah. But I think that's where like, that's where our humility has to come in. And this is where I'm always like, this is where I'm always constantly self-reflecting on is our own hubris and our own humility, and like how we're supposed to make sure that we recognize that and how limited we are, because if we don't, we're constantly just shooting ourselves in the foot. We're just making ourselves bigger than we are, and we're not
Right.
taking everything else into account. And the same goes both ways. Like when you're thinking religiously, it's like, this is what it is. This is
Right.
exactly how it's been since thousands of years ago when this one person was on this earth, and like I don't claim to know exactly what happened 3, 4, 5,000 whatever like years ago,
Yeah.
and well, how it all came to be, but we have to realize like how what the knowledge we come to terms with now is affected by like generations and generations and generations of humans messing things up and not you know not keeping track of things, and there's so much room there for our ability to kind of think critically about what has happened thousands of years ago. And it's not even necessarily that. It's like it's not necessarily that it's not true. It's just like there is no absolutes in anything. You know what I mean? And I think this is like this is what it is for me is and like this about me is like whatever it is, whatever this is just love is God, is love, is whatever. Just be loving and kind, and that's like the foundation
Yeah,
for everything.
for sure. Of course.
And that's call it God, call it the universe, call it existence, whatever. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It's just like
Yeah.
that is just the force that brings us all together and keeps us moving in the right direction. And I think we can get so caught up in big questions, especially me, and everyone else who thinks about this, because these are questions that they're big, and obviously like I think I don't know. Sometimes I get bored of these questions. You know what I mean? I think I'm being honest. Like sometimes I just get so bored of like asking the same questions over and over, because it's not that there's no wisdom to be discovered from it. It's just that there's this sense that there's also so much else to explore. You know what I mean? And there's so
Right.
much else
Of
that
course.
is also can bring an immense amount of wisdom, an immense amount of
Right.
profound sense to reality. And so, you also want to focus on different aspects to existence and
Of
not
course.
just the foundation of it all. You know what I mean?
I think people have different fulfillments that they need in their
Yeah.
life, and that comes in many different forms. Like you said, it's like perfect example is religious people. That's the fulfillment that they found, and like I think it also goes back to what you said. It's a very important that that foundation is based off of love, and that's why like Christianity works, and Catholicism works, and Hinduism, and like all the like very big religions. That's why they work, is because they are on a foundation of love. Like obviously we can nitpick every little small detail about everything that we have wrong with it, but that's not our fulfillment. That's those other people's fulfillment, and it's based off of that. And in our lives, it comes in different forms too. For you, it's the questioning of all the big thoughts. That's your fulfillment. Is like you really want to dive deep, and and just and it's crazy to think, like even for you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like even that you're not getting the answers per se from your questions you're asking,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that you're asking the questions is giving you the fulfillment that you need.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? And I
Yeah.
think that's cool because it comes in a lot of different ways. Like I said, it could be religion, it could be asking questions, it could be fulfilling your life with like tons of loved ones around you and continually doing stuff and being out there and, trying to find your next high or whatever. Like sometimes it's a fulfillment that that person needs. And that's what's cool is that it comes in a lot of different forms. And if that, and it's, there's no right answer. I think that there is just a general rule of thumb that like it should be based out of love or like curiosity and not hurting others, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think if you know that your foundation of what you're getting to be fulfilling is based off of those things, then you're heading in the right direction. You're doing things that you're nurturing yourself in that aspect.
Definitely, yeah, and I mean that's what it is. It brings the fulfillment and it brings the perspective and I think most importantly it shapes, it's like it shapes your awareness of what you need to do next. And so when I think about asking big questions or wanting to pursue a question further in my mind and just through experiencing certain things, it's like how does asking this question help me navigate existence more fully, better, in a more loving way? You know what I mean? And so like
Right.
that's why I ask the questions. It's not just
Absolutely.
it's not just to ask the questions to get I mean it's to ask the questions to get different perspectives, but the different
Of course.
perspectives shape how I think about existence now, presently, and how I think it's best for me to navigate this space with the most amount of love and kindness and respect and I can possibly manage to do. And I wouldn't be able to come to these realizations without having asked the questions first.
Right.
And I am like solidly rooted in this foundation that this foundation of like love and kindness. And that for me is my fulfillment. That is like at the end of the day,
definitely.
you could do anything. You could bring on the worst experiences I could ever possibly imagine. I'm not saying I want to go there or I know how I'm going to react, but
Right.
at the end of the day, I pride myself in hoping I'm the person that is like dies however I die with that rooted in me. You know what I mean? It's just
Right.
like this solid stake in the ground of my existence is love and kindness, and like that's it. If I'm gonna die with anything in me, if I'm gonna leave this world and exit this existence with anything on my mind, it's that. And it's not because that at the end of the day I could die with a fulfilled heart and knowing that I'm doing the right thing and thinking the right thing because I know where that leads. You know what I mean? And I think often about like where that leads and after death, whatever. But whatever happens is like I just trust that will take me wherever I need to go. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so like
Right.
people, you can think about it in so many different ways. And I
Yeah.
think that's like, that's just the way I think about it. But, you can take that view, like you said, like you can take it in a religious way, you can take it in a non-religious way. I don't know. And I'm sure it gets very exhaustive with inexhaustive with how people think about it. But that's just what I think. And it grounds me. And I'm proud to have come to that conclusion, but it took a lot of questioning to get there.
No, I think you hit a good point. Is like I think it's just like it's a tool that you find. It's a tool that you find that works really well for you, and you just keep sharpening that tool.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of people, I would seriously say this for literally everybody is that you find a community, and your community can come in so many different forms. And like I said, it goes back to religion. Maybe that's the community that you need to be in order to be the best you. The best you wants to be loving and caring and think about others and maybe open your mind up to new experiences that you never had before that are really helpful in your life. And then it could also be, like you said, asking questions, talking to different people that have different perspective on things, embracing yourself in culture. That's why people go and travel. They go and freaking travel. And we even met people in our lives that are like 40 something. They're like, I haven't stopped traveling since I was 18. It's like you can tell that it's great for them, and they're like, I've been to like 50 countries and I loved every single one of them, and they know a bunch of languages and stuff like that. It's like because they're just embracing themselves into like what feels best for them. And I think that comes in a lot of different forms. But it's basically you find a tool that works good for you, that's accepted up with people around you of like, oh yeah, like you work really well with that tool, and like you're a pleasure to be around when you're using that tool, and all you could do is just continue sharpening that tool.
Yeah, totally. No, it's a good point. I think you bring up another one, which is, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot because, I haven't been specific I told you last time we talked, I was like working on a project.
Yeah.
But, I thinking a lot about like how our experiences have shaped who we are. And I'm writing a lot of things down about how that has affected us, and that it's such a big question. So because you and I know that is such a big topic in our lives, is like how our experiences have shaped us,
Yeah.
and so I would like to get your perspective on how you specifically view the the trajectory that you lived, and how that has brought you to the kind of the ideologies and the way of living that you are on now. And I know that's a huge question, and I know, so maybe like, specifically with like traveling, like you mentioned, it's like the amount of traveling we did was extensive, and it lasted long, and it still continues to last. And that's like the crazy thing, is that it just continues.
Yeah.
And I think about this a lot, because I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on your side, but like I feel like we can view it as like something ended. You know what I mean? There was like a point where it was like, all right, I gotta do this, and it's just like,
Yeah.
there was a point where something stopped,
Yeah.
and then we went on a different path. But
Yeah.
but in reality, when you think about it from a more holistic viewpoint, when nothing stopped, it's just looked different. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
like there's been certain chapters that have come and gone, but nothing's really stopped. What's just the craziest thing, I think, to think about, is that
Right.
we're still on this path of growth and movement and betterment of whatever, everything that it
Right.
is. It just is, there's different seasons, there's different chapters. So how have you thought about
Right.
that?
I think it's like it's the big ones that you pay attention to.
Yeah.
There's trajectories that happen every day. If I hold my breath for 2 seconds like that, that changes trajectory on things. If we're gonna get all technical on it, but it's the ones that the note that you notice the biggest in your life is what affects you the most, I think. So, these big decisions of like doing a big trip, or continuing on, or going to a second trip, or being like, I want to freaking start my own business, or I want to live here, or I want to start a podcast, these big decisions that you're making affect your trajectory tenfold, and you see that. And I think that like it, in a way, kind of going back to what you said, you're like, I know that it feels like you're like, oh, well, that trip ended here, and that trip ended there, and like now I'm in a different point. But like in the grand scheme of things, we know that's not the truth. It's just one big long journey. But I think that the reason we feel that way is because when you make those huge decisions, when you make those, you can feel the trajectory happening, and it fuels you. It's like, oh, I'm riding this wave. Like I'm hopping on this wave, and I'm not stopping anytime soon.
That's a good
And
point.
eventually, and eventually that type of motivation, or what's the word, like continuing feeling of like implementing yourself into this new experience that's exciting and great and working really well, is eventually going to slow down. There's going to be no wave that is continuous and endless, and it's like the only thing that we could do is hop on that wave and ride it out, and like experience all those great things. That's why when everybody tells us, they're like, go travel when you're young, it's like, it's going to be great for you. And it's like, it's that wave. They know that you're going to hop on that wave, and you're going to go through life, and you're going to get all this, like, you're just going to be a sponge and soaking up all this culture and experiences and meeting new people and stuff like that. But it eventually ends, even for people that are like on the road for 40 years that are traveling, like there's still like sets that they're like, oh, well, I had to go live on a farm for about a year to like save up a little bit more money. Like if on technical terms, you can say that's when their trip ended, but that's not necessarily the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I think when we feel those feelings of like, oh well, maybe I'm not, on that same trajectory as I was before. Well, yeah, you are. It's just you're going to a next chapter in your life that maybe you're preparing yourself for the next big event in your life that you're going to be, riding
Mm-hmm.
soon. So I think it's all a part of life is like going through the highs and then the lows and then just the middle ground sometimes. A lot of life is just the middle ground. And it's just being on this plateau of like, you're kind of like, okay, I have a lot of opportunities to do right now, but I need to stay at this point in my life and like really implement myself into my podcast or in my job or in a relationship or a person or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, utilize that time, but that base of that what you're on right now might seem at the time that it's like not your adventurous part of life or your journey, but that's like building yourself up to the next like huge trajectory that happens in your life
Yeah.
that you're gonna take.
No,
And I
that's
think that looks
cool.
it looks different in a lot of different ways. It can happen in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. It builds you up to the point where you need to be. And where you are right now may seem like I think when you put it in perspective of, especially like you and I who like the adventure, who thrive in that unknown
Yeah,
space of just
exactly.
committing fully to an adventure or an exciting experience, when you put it in perspective of like what I'm doing now, which is
Yeah,
slowing down or like in a certain stage in my life where things have I wouldn't say settled, but like have have slowed down.
yeah, yeah,
And when we think about the grand scheme of our journey through life, what I'm doing now is a bit slow and it's a bit like not the
yeah.
same as what I was doing before.
Of course.
And it doesn't mean that there's not a lot that's going on because there's a ton that's going on. It's
Exactly.
just a matter of like our perspective in when it when we were putting it in the frame of everything else that we've done, and and that frame is like constantly getting bigger because then when the
Exactly.
next thing happens, when eventually the next change in my life comes,
Mhm.
as long as we don't die, we 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 can view the time that I am in or we're in right now as a
Exactly.
different as a different sort of as like another chapter that we didn't really
Yes.
appreciate in the same way as we did or we would in the future when we see it from retrospect.
Right.
And so we're like, oh, remember when I was like going through that again, or like remember
Yeah.
when I was
Right.
like in
Right.
that headspace, or when I was living there, and I thought it was like not the same. And
Right.
I think that's a profound thing to realize, especially
Yes.
when it affects your happiness and when it affects like what you view right now as something that is like lesser to something else that has gone on. You know what I mean? And
Right.
it's
Right.
not fair to yourself because like it's impossible to be happy all the time. But I guess it more so in the sense of like our fulfillment in life. You know what I mean? We could
Yeah.
feel sometimes less fulfilled in a certain area, even though this certain area is not necessarily anything different, or sorry, not necessarily something worse off than another time in your life. It's just something different. And when we let our time now affect our fulfillment in life, I think that can be, we have to just be aware of that because there's always something to find. There's always fulfillment to be found. It's just a matter of our perspective on it.
Yeah. No, I think two things on that is like a perfect example, and I know we talk about it a lot because it is one of our biggest happenings in life was when we left California. And like I will argue that like the reason why that happened was because that time that was before then, as much as we say like, oh, we hated ourselves, we were miserable, we were depressed, and like, we like it was a really dark point in our life. The reason why we made the big trip was because of that.
Mm-hmm.
We were put in such a place that we knew we weren't happy that we made this drastic change in our life. And you can literally argue that ever since that happened, we've been doing that continually. And like and what I think we're both realizing now is that that time before that huge trajectory happens in life
Hmm.
is so much, if not more important than the actual trip. Because like the fact that you were on this like mindset and you were you had this base of like, I know I need to make this change, is so important that you have that, that if you didn't have that, you wouldn't have gone on to that trajectory. You would have just continued on through life and
Yeah.
just, just kept going that. And it's like, I think there's a sense of important like aspect in that part of life. It's like, even if you, I think, and then also what ties into that a lot, and I would even argue now, is like just like, our little experience we've had in this world. Like, we're still young, man. We're still in our 20s. Like, and I think that really it means a lot too, because if we look back when we were in California, like we knew so little, dude. And like, not that I know so much now, but like compared to then, like I there's so much more that I learned in the past 2 years than like the entirety of my childhood. And I think that just continues on, and I've been noticing that too. So it's like, now that we're in this slow part of our life, we've had this before, and I know we've had this when we were teenagers in high school. Like, there was this slow part of our life, but now that we have that time now with the experiences that we have, we choose to use that time differently. And not that we utilize the time more or better or worse. It's just we use it differently because we know what we need in life at this point. And it's like, even now, like I think that's why it feels like, on some aspect, I'm like quote unquote wasting time. It's like, oh, what am I doing here? Like, I could be doing something else. And it's like, oh, well, that's part of where I'm at in my life right now. I'm in 20. Like, like, there are people, of course, you can argue like you need to have your shit together like by this age and stuff like that, and like you should start wrapping your head around that. But like, in the long scheme of things, like, you have like, as long as we, like you said, we don't die, like, you have time to figure that stuff out, and this is the time that you're figuring that stuff out, and it's okay. Like, you
Hmm.
need to be okay with that. Like, you're gonna have at times where it's just slow, and you just need time to have a shitty job and not do much else, and just like kind of work through that, and then you're like, like, this shitty job's really opened my eyes to like wanting to move here or wanting to do this,
Hmm.
or maybe make that big leap again by going and traveling or something like that. It's like, you need those foundations first in order for you to make those huge opportunities that you
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. No, totally. And you needed to be in the right headspace. And I think that's a big point as well. It's like, when you're doing certain things, you're in a certain headspace, and so you apply that to being traveling, or you apply that to like working, or to taking care of somebody else. You're in a different headspace. You're in a different area or season in your life that allows you to be put into a certain headspace that you can operate better or worse from, depending on what you're thinking
Mm-hmm.
about. And so, like, when we took off, and we had literally nothing on our minds but moving from place to place, like, for the rest of our life,
Yeah.
that was the headspace we needed to be able to do the things that we were doing. But then
Right.
when we got to a point where we realized that, maybe we want to find a base for ourselves or something like that, then our headspace shifted, and our environment shifted to put us in a different headspace. And so
Right.
we were able
That's a
to
good point.
think differently about a certain thing. And I
True.
think, like, right now, I know I'm in a headspace trying to accomplish certain things, and I wouldn't be able to be in the correct headspace that is needed for what I'm trying to do right now if it wasn't for the change in environment that I've seen. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, of
so,
course.
I think that's really important to pay attention to, because we're also paying attention to, like, the environment in which we are operating in, and that gives us opportunities to see different aspects of our mind and different aspects of our life in a different way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you completely. I think that it's a lot comes into play. It's the environment, it's your past, it's the opportunities you took to be where you're at, and
Mm.
those don't necessarily need to be on the top of the wave. Like I said, you don't need to be, and not every aspect you have to be in this like crazy environment that like you thrive in. Is that like, that doesn't have to necessarily be all the time,
Yeah.
in order for you to think different ways or for you to experience different things, and for you to act different ways or further yourself in life is like you have to go through those ranges, you know, that it can't be on top of the wave the whole time. And I think that's what we learned early on is on that trip is like, oh no, like we kind of need like a home base. I need to have a routine. It's very important to me, and I think that's just part of getting older and like realizing what you kind of want in life is like, for me is like I realize that it's, you know, so important. I know we had this conversation on the phone the other day, but it's like it's so important to have like not only a home base but like friends around me. Like I cherish that the most now. Like I'm starting to really realize what's important to my life right now. It's not material things or being next to the beach or surfing, you know. It's like of course that's all things I want, of course, but like
They're
if I
important
really
things.
like if I take everything else away, what is my foundation? What do I want?
Hmm.
What's the most important thing in my life? And it's like you start realizing those things. It's creating a home, having family, having a community around you, having friends that are close, having good relationships, you know,
Hmm.
like I think that, you know, you have to have a good base in order for you to thrive, and like we're still figuring that out today, you know. It's
Yeah.
like you take the steps towards that closer and closer every day. And even if that means that you're in a slow period of your life of like, you know, oh, I'm just trying to kind of figure out maybe one location that I want to live, then so be it. That's fine. That's the time that you need to take in order to get to yourself in that position that you're going to be happy with, because we have a lot of time left, you know, and I think that it's important to realize that. And I know we going back to time. It's like, you know, we're not given anything set in stone, but it is a reality check of like, okay, well, what if that is true? What if I do get to live a
Hmm.
fulfilled life? What if I get to be 60? Okay, like what am I doing now in order to get myself in a position that I'm really happy with? I want to be the old guy that lives in this beautiful house and he's like, I would never leave this place. I have a beautiful wife, beautiful kids. I love where I'm at. I love what I do, and I'm just happy. And I'm like, okay, how if I have that time, even if I'm not, even if I'm not guaranteed the time, the small chance that I do have that time, what am I doing today in order to get to that position? And it's like go through the slow periods of life, go through the high periods of your life, go through all of them in order to get to that place.
Yeah, but even in that place, it still fluctuates. You know what I mean? And I think
Absolutely, for
that's,
sure.
I think there's not only that point, but the what you I think you really hit on some a good idea being our like concept of not necessarily always being in the environment in which we are like thriving in life.
Hmm.
that that is awesome to be in. It's a great thing, and it is like that you're on the right path. And once you feel that and you experience it, like even once, you're like, I know that like exists, and I know I could like that is a goal to be achieved in life because you know that it's possible.
Right.
And a lot of people just don't ever experience that, which is
Yeah.
which is sad. But I mean, at the same time, like there are, we all go through ups and downs, and so whatever it looks like for you. But at the same time, not being in the environment that you thrive in, when you're in the environment in which it is not necessarily the best, it doesn't seem the best for you. You're still you're still learning so much from that. You're still learning an incredible amount based off the fact that you're not in that environment anymore, and that
Right.
something has happened where circumstances have led you to a point where you are not necessarily in that the headspace in which you are just absolutely killing life. And that's I think once you put it in perspective, when you're living that moment, it kind of sucks because you're like,
Yeah.
man, like what do I have to do to get out of this? but
Right. Yes.
but you learn, but by the sheer fact that you learn so much about, not only yourself but just the world in general by having those experiences where you're just not necessarily doing the best. Um,
Right.
it brings a whole new meaning to like when you are in those experiences. It brings a whole new
Yes.
perspective to being in those experiences right then, because you're like,
Yes.
what am I learning right now about myself? What am I learning about
Right.
the environment that I'm in?
Right.
What am I learning about how how I don't necessarily want to be here all the time, or I don't want to be here like in this position next year or 5 years from now.
Right.
How do I navigate, and how do I bring together certain elements of my life that aren't going to be leading me to this spot again, and or you know what I
Of
mean,
course.
you know what I mean,
No.
and it's like
Absolutely, man.
how do we
Those are
navigate,
just as
and
important.
so that's like the most important thing about being self-reflective in the situations where it's shitty, or when it sucks sometimes, and you're just like,
Right.
wow, this is difficult, but you know, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be like the most difficult, challenging thing you've ever faced, but you know, whenever you're in an environment where it's just not working out for whatever reason, you know, you're learning so much, and because of that learning, because of that knowledge and experience that you're gaining, you could it brings like a sense of fulfillment in the moment of experiencing that.
Definitely. No, it's you said it best. I think it is that's exactly what I'm saying. Is like those times before something big happens are just as important, and the only thing you could do in those moments is to be self-aware of that. Like you said, it's like it's okay to go through the struggle sometimes. It's okay to be in this nominal place that doesn't seem high or low, or maybe you just feel low, is like that you're getting to a place of like, okay, I know that I can't do this forever. And the only way you realize that is when you're in that moment. Because if you're just riding that wave, if you're just traveling all the time and you're constantly in that, you get to a place where even us, we're like, okay, we need to settle down a little bit. And maybe settling down means just to like, you know, like you said, be in that low place, but like you need to have that for a while to build yourself back up into what you want to be doing. And the only way to go through that is to go the only way to do that is to go through that.
Yeah.
But I think exactly what you said. In order for that to feel more fulfilling for you, is to be self-aware of that, like in the moment of like, okay, yeah, it seems like it's just kind of like slow in my life right now, but like also like it's kind of nice. Like I need it right now. It's the best thing for me right now. And in order for me to achieve this one desired goal in the future, I have to be here right now, and I'm okay with that. You
Yeah.
know, that's the beautiful part of that. If you're self-aware of that, you're just gonna grow. It's gonna help you out further, because you can still be happy in that moment versus like, oh, I only happy when I'm in that thriving moment of like being embraced with everything. It's like, no, not necessarily. You can find happiness in the calm part of life too. You know.
Totally. Yeah, it's like what opportunities are being afforded to you in the moments where it doesn't seem like things are the best.
Right.
And that is, you know, it's a question you have to answer individually. Everyone has to answer that for themselves, but it takes their self-reflectiveness to kind of come up on those answers, and I think that's of real importance there.
Of course.
So my computer's dying, and we gotta end this. We've been talking for a little while.
Yeah, I should probably get some food.
But we cannot end the podcast without talking about a little bit of music.
Yes.
Every episode, because I know you've listened to every episode, John, and I know that
so
every episode.
Excited to talk about this part.
So what are you most excited about listening to right now, John?
I think you might already know this, but I am stoked, and I mean stoked, about Petey's new album. Do you know this?
Petey's new album. Petey has a new album. I know. I heard a new
No,
single from him.
not yet. He has 2 singles out,
Oh, Petey.
and I'll wait.
I'll wait.
I've been
It's a good song.
playing
I know that one.
on repeat. Have you watched the YouTube video?
No.
Vibe. It's a vibe, dude. You gotta listen to it.
Okay.
Especially in my experience right now, I like listened to it one day and I was like really in my feels, and I saw Sadie the next day and I was like, I hope you know that like if you watch that video, it's exactly how I'm fucking feeling right now.
All right.
But anyways, it's that, and then I think what's the other one? It's like, I'm sorry or something, or There's another single that's out by him too, and they're both fucking great. So
okay. Did I mention I'm
super.
sorry? That's the other
Did I
single.
mention? I'm sorry. That's what it is. Yep.
Okay.
Those two are great, dude. I'll Wait is definitely my favorite, but I'm just stoked because everybody's like, oh my God, he's coming out with a new album. And I was like, it's going to be sick. If these two songs are the first that he brought out,
Yes.
it's going to be good.
I'll wait is good. I am look at I'm just gonna say it right there. I mean, I introduced you guys to Petey, right? I mean, that
You
was
definitely,
right.
dude. I will hands down thank you, dude. Because honestly, I remember when you first like showed me the "Don't Tell the Boys." I was like, oh, this is like pretty good, you know. And like I kind of listened to his other stuff, but I didn't really like fully embrace myself. And then Sadie, I know that you know, like Sadie got like really into Petey,
Yep.
and I started kind of like listening to his other songs, and I'm like, oh fuck, he's actually like really good.
Yeah.
And then like now that these new songs are out, I'm like, I'm 100% a fan now, 100%.
Told you,
Like,
Petey's so
and
good.
that was from you, man.
You're
He's
welcome.
really good. I love his vibes are great.
Yes,
Um,
Petey is great.
and then obviously I've been listening to a lot of Goth Babe recently because I
Goth
saw him.
Babe.
So those have been the two. Petey and Goth Babe have been like the
Yes.
mood right now.
Your Goth Babe experience, top notch.
Ah, dude, so good. I just you gotta if you're ever close to him, dude, or if you ever have the opportunity to go see him, if he's like in Phoenix and you need to go visit your family, just freaking do it, dude.
Okay.
Like the concert is so fucking cool, dude. It's so much different than an average It's I honestly haven't had a concert experience like that ever before.
Oh
Like
wow.
it was a lot more unique than a like normal concert, I would say.
Wow.
Just really good vibes. It like matches personality perfectly too.
Okay. That's sick. No, I of course I want to go see Goth Babe. I introduced you to Goth Babe too, right? Or
Yes, you did. Yep. I remember specifically because Sadie asked me. She's like, oh, how did you start listening to Goth Babe? I was like, I remember specifically because I know you mentioned him before this moment, but like I didn't really like listen to it, or like I just heard like a very snippet of like one of the songs you were playing. But the one time I really remember you like being like, dude, you gotta listen to him, was when we were in the backyard of Oklahoma, sitting in the storm drain, and you were smoking, you're super high, and you're like, bro, this is the most insane. And I just remember being like a little like wary of it because you were just like so high, and I was like, oh no, this is actually like pretty chill vibes. And then like when I did my research on my own and I watched the videos of him like surfing while making the music, I was like, this is fucking sick, dude. This is
Dude,
dope.
it's so good. It's
It is
it's
good.
just good vibes all around, all the time. That's when I
I
listen to
think
Good Goth Babe.
you know what I realized why we like it so much. Obviously, I mean it makes sense, but like it's like a pure representation of like how we were raised. Like the life that we were raised in is like he like makes music through that.
Yeah.
That's what I realized. Is like
Yes.
it's not necessary, like it's definitely surfing vibes for sure. So that's like a huge portion of it. That's the endorphins start going off as
Yeah.
soon as starts anything surfing related to Goth Babe. I'm like
Yes.
but I think it's just like the embodiment of being on the West Coast and like even his like demeanor and like everything he dresses in and like outdoors like van
Yeah.
stuff is like all of that is like a great representation of like kind of like how we were brought up as kids. I think that's why I relate to it so
Yeah.
much.
It is. It's like just to me when I listen to it, it's just the epitome of good vibes. That's what it feels like. And I love Goth Babe. I totally forgot about that. I remember vividly now the Oklahoma experience
Yes.
of us
Yes.
on that lake and the river.
Yeah.
And I remember that, but it's funny. I
Yeah,
forgot
we
about
were in
that.
the backyard in that little storm drain and you were smoking and you played it off your phone. And I remember that was like the first time I actually heard like a full song
Yeah.
through because when you said Goth Babe, I was like, who is this girl like that you're talking about? I was like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
It's great. No, you introduced me to both those bands for sure. I give you that credit because they're amazing finds for sure.
Yeah, great. People should start listening to me more often. Why do you think I'm doing this? Just kidding. Just kidding.
Dude, it's funny because I had this. I'll have to remember it next time we talk. But I had this like, this thing, this like, this perspective of like what music meant to me in my life, and I lost it. But like it was like I was like I need to call up Evan and talk about this right now, because it was like this
Oh, no.
eye-opening moment where I was just like I know what music means to me. I'll have to remember it.
Fits. No, tell me next time. But music fits like, it is the catalyst to so many things. Like, and it fits it. anything you're going through, anything, literally
Yeah.
anything, there is
Yeah.
a type of music to put to it. And that's the most
Yes. Yeah.
amazing thing about
Crazy,
music,
dude.
is that there's just constantly, if there's some piece of the music puzzle that you can fit into the existence puzzle, and you just
Right.
like put it in there, and then it's like, wow,
Yeah.
that's so cool. And I think that's the
Oh, you know
beautiful thing.
what? I think you kind of brought up this is a part of it. I think what I realized I was like, okay, so I know that you know this. There's people that are like really into music, and then there's people that are just like they just listen to music, right? It's just kind of like a pastime, you know? And I realized that like the people I really feel like the people that like are really into music and listen to a lot of different things and find a lot of new music, the reason why they do that is because they're better at like they have a better like
Please tell me why we're
I,
better.
it's like yeah it's a more understanding of like what you need to be listening to at the moment. Does that make sense? Like you like to
Oh.
fit your mood. Like so people have moods, and I
Mm.
think I think anybody has this where it's like if you're in a certain mood and you listen to a certain song, you're like that was exactly what I needed to listen to. You know that you have that feeling, and I think that people
Yes, yeah.
that are really good at like finding music or artists are people that are good at doing that on the regular. That's what I found. Because, like, I don't have that all the time. Like, there's times where I'm like, oh, what's matching my mood? And I'll listen to stuff. And I'm like, I'm just not vibing with it. Like, I just can't vibe with it, you know? And then there's other times where I'm, like, thriving on the day. And I think that's what sets apart people. Because, like, there's people that just listen to pop music. And it's like, that's just and it's good for them. Like, everybody has
They're always popping.
their yeah, but that's the thing is like I get it, and it's like what I've also realized is like pop music like caters to that like feeling of like oh that's like the song I want to be listening to in the moment. You know, it's like it gives off those like endorphins, but like you can find that in so many other things. But if you don't have the tools for that, people don't really put the effort in, and I think that separates people that are music people, like legit, like really embrace themselves into like different types of music and like seek out new artists and stuff. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I completely agree. If you're not listening to your, I think that's a very good point. It's just being, it's like the ability to recognize what mood you're in, and then
Yes.
what music would fit that mood the most aptly. And then, and it takes a second. I mean, just because, you shouldn't like, just because it might take a second to kind of feel it out doesn't mean that you're not that type of person. It's like, I
No,
think
I know.
it's
But
just the willingness to do it, and
right.
that's what it is.
But
And
but that's what I'm saying is I feel like there's people that are like really good at that, and you're one of them. You're definitely like there's people that I meet that are like really good about like finding new music, and it's because I think they have like the tool to use when they're like, oh, like I know what the vibe is right now, and they'll start playing a song, and you're like, oh, this fucking sick ass song, you know, like you're like you just know instantly. They're like, how do you like know like that's the song we should be listening to?
yeah, no, thank you,
And
thank
it's
you.
different between people.
My partner Dorsey, she's also of that kin. She's very good with that. But you know what it is too, dude? It's not just that, but it's I am constantly seeking new music. I mean, I obviously like I play a lot of the music that I love, but I am
Right.
always every week, without fail, pretty much. I mean, over the past maybe 3 years, maybe a couple weeks that have slipped by, but I always listen to my Discover Weekly on Spotify.
Yeah, me too,
Always,
dude.
every
Great.
week, and then I constantly adding songs every week, and then I'll go back to the like songs, and then just listen to like my top playlist because I know they're already bangers because I added them,
Yes.
and then I'm just constantly in that cycle of just like finding music, and then not only that, but like listening to the mixes, listening to other people's recommendations, going on YouTube whenever I'm on YouTube, if there's like a music playlist because we listen to a lot of like music through YouTube, like music videos. I'll just click on thumbnails that I think look cool. I'm like, I've literally never heard this. Let me put it on. And then
Yeah.
we're like, oh, wow, what a cool song. I'm adding this right
Yeah.
now. And so, like, it's just constantly, like,
Yeah.
love discovering new music. But it's
That's
honestly a
great.
challenge. It's honestly a challenge because sometimes you're like, I
Yeah.
just want to listen to, like, what I know and what's good.
No, I
and
know.
that's great. And trust me, love that. But sometimes a lot of the times I'm just like I'm challenging myself to seek out that new music, and then when I find something
Definitely.
good, I'm like, wow, like this is sick. I'm so happy that I challenged myself to find the music because I would have missed out on so much had
Yeah.
I not done that. You know what
No.
I mean?
Dude, I will say I have that too, and I actually like that part of it. Like I kind of like the like searching for something new.
Yeah.
My little piece of tip before we go that I'll give to you is, if like the same thing with YouTube, what I started doing recently is, like, if you go through YouTube and you're watching like I know you don't really go on YouTube as much, but if you do, like, look up like a favorite music video that you like or a song that you like and watch the music video. And like anytime a suggestion comes up, keep doing the one that has the smallest amount of views that's for music, no matter what it is. If it's just, even if it's some like random thing, just like keep doing the one that has the smallest views and keep going down that. You'll go down the rabbit hole of like all this like brand new music, and like I found like some like actually like pretty sick stuff sometimes, because like once you start going down into like the lower views, it'll start going down to like different categories like rock or like, you know, like electronic music or whatever. And if you start going like pressing the rock like type songs, a lot of other things will come up that it's like only 1,000 views or like 100 views or something like that. So it's like brand new. That's kind of fun to do too.
No, that's a great idea. And
a lot of them are crap. I hope you know that, like, a lot of them are bad, but like you'll find one that's kind of cool.
Every once in a while, you'll find a gem.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think what's cool about that is like just in general, because you know, like for me, when I do, and I will get to my recommendation this episode in a second, but for me, like especially with like YouTube and like being like a small creator and stuff, putting my stuff up on Spotify, and like obviously I'm not huge.
Yeah, no.
That goes without saying. But I have so much more respect for people that are creating and they're not getting views, and then it's like because I'm one of those people. I'm like, I'm really trying to put out something good here, and I'm and it's like I really think that what I'm putting out like looks good, sounds good, is good, and then like when I see other people, like it's made me so much more receptive and interested in small like channels, like small interesting like YouTubers or like podcasts or whatever that are not like huge Joe Rogans or whatever, or Lex Fridman or whatever. Right. And so like for me, it's like really cool to like discover those small people that are like putting out great things. They're just like, yeah, like, why aren't you bigger? Like, you know what I mean? And it's cool. I like it.
No, it's cool. It's always like a good feeling when you find that.
Yeah. Also, it's a good feeling when you find like a killer song, and then you're like, why does this only have 3,000 views or 3,000 listens or something? You're like, what is going on?
Yeah. You listen to a banger and you look, and like I've had it too where on Spotify, like I listen to a song like my Discover, I'm like, oh sick, I'm gonna add that song, and then I go to the artist and it's like only like 3,000 monthly listeners. I was like, what? Like,
yeah, no, it's crazy. So before we end it, my recommendation. Okay, so this is not life changing. Okay, I promise you, everyone's heard of what I'm about to say here, but I have been recently writing a lot of things, and I've needed to be put in a headspace. And I know my brother Brendan, he recommended me to listen to Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. And I don't know what I've been doing with my life, but I never listened to Pink. I've heard Pink Floyd all the time on the radio, whatever. I would never thought about Pink Floyd. Everyone's wearing the T-shirts. Everybody in the world wears Dark Side of the Moon T-shirt. We all own them. I don't own them, but But Brendan, I remember when we were in California, he was like, dude, what you got to do is just sit down.
So glad
you just gotta like sit down in a dark room, and then you gotta listen to Dark Side of the Moon and think about what the words are. And I was like, okay. And so
I'm glad your brother did that, because it's essential, bro.
It is, dude. And I've been on a Pink Floyd kick right now, and I listen to Time.
So
good, dude. So good, dude. It doesn't make sense.
The Great Gig in the Sky is my favorite on that album.
Yeah. Breathe. What is?
Now I gotta give you a recommendation. Then, if you listen to Pink Floyd, you gotta listen to I believe it's Meddle, Meddle, Meddle. Okay. It's album. It's a really small album by them. Okay. I think that's what it's called. Hold on, let me look real quick. Anyways,
it's called Meddle.
That. Yes, Meddle. That album is only like I think 4 songs on it or whatever. Listen to that. Fearless. On that album is great, but yeah, Echoes is another good one on that one. It's a lot of, because you know how like there are a lot of sounds and stuff like that.
Mm.
That album's very much like it's a lot of the instruments playing, but oh man, I don't know what it is, but that album in particular, love that
Dude,
album.
they're so existential, and I did not
I,
realize that. Like, I was just like, because I remember like listening to a little bit of lyrics or looking at or paying attention to a little bit of the lyric, and then I like actually sat down and listened to Dark Side of the Moon recently, and I was like, this is so good. It's
yeah.
so good, and
Okay.
I'm excited that I finally, after years of me obviously hearing Pink Floyd but never thinking about Pink Floyd,
Yeah.
I was like,
Okay.
oh my god, there's a reason why
I,
everyone's into Pink Floyd,
I got to
but
give you two that you have to listen to. I'm gonna give you right now. Okay. So Fearless is one of them, which is on
okay,
that metal album.
okay.
You have to listen to that one. And Dogs. Have you listened to Dogs by Pink Floyd?
Is that off the same album?
Dogs.
No.
No, it's
No.
its own
Dogs.
thing. It's just called Do.
Dogs. No.
Yeah. Listen to
Okay.
those two. Dogs, dude. I
Okay.
would recommend like maybe smoking a little bit before. It's so there's a guitar riff
Hard
in
to
it
come
though.
by out here.
But even when you're sober, dude, it's like one of those like ah.
Okay, sick.
Yeah,
No,
those
yeah,
two.
it's so
Please
good.
listen to those. Please. There's Dogs in particular
Mhm.
has such a good guitar riff.
Yeah.
I would pay money just to listen to it for the first time again.
All right. Well, I'll let you know how it turns out. I did listen to like I've been listening to like the This Is Pink Floyd on Spotify, like their essential
Oh
playlists
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. So
Great way to
that's
listen to
yeah,
them.
that's been great. But yeah, I mean, I just
Oh,
listened
I'm
like
happy for you,
back to
dude.
back
They're
like
good.
Dark Side of the Moon, and it's not a long album; it's pretty short.
Yeah.
But like time for me, favorite is hands down.
So good.
Time.
So good. Such a good, unique way of starting a song too, with like a bunch of alarm
But
clocks
dude,
going
I
off.
didn't think about it. Dude, I've heard that song a million. Dude, I've heard that song a million times, but
I
I've
know you
never
have.
thought about it. That's the most.
That's
This
funny.
is why I've now been getting into point because I've never thought about Pink Floyd. I've never
Yeah, of course.
looked at the thought about the
Really
lyrics.
embraced.
I never embraced it. It was just on the radio, and I was like, oh yeah, like classic songs. And then
Yeah.
I was like, oh, time, like the clocks in the background. And it's like talking
Yeah.
about like living your life and you're just constantly like, the sun is just going down and we're all just,
Yeah.
and I'm like, what is going
Yeah, dude, it's so good.
It
Pink
hits,
Floyd,
dude. It
they're
hits. Pink
there's
Floyd.
there I have there's it's funny because I know that you know this now, but there's no wonder why there's people that are like hardcore dedicated to that
Yes. Yes.
that band, and then also people like our age that are like getting into it new for the first time that are like, this is my new favorite band. Like
Yeah.
there's no wonder. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not at that level yet, but it is, I mean, honestly, this has been pretty recent. This past few days, I was like, I'm put on Pink Floyd. Brendan always told me to listen to Pink Floyd. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, what have I been missing out on
Yeah.
them? You know what I mean? Not paying attention.
No, they're great. No, I'm the same way.
obviously.
I'm not like hardcore into them, but they're great. Every time I listen to their songs.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fearless, I definitely give you those. Fearless and Dogs, please listen to those two.
I will-
Those are really good songs.
I will give you my recommendations next week. Or I'll give you my opinions next week. I just added them to my song, so I'll definitely listen to them. So.
And then give me a recommendation right now besides Pink
Besides
Floyd.
Pink Floyd? You know what?
You gave me
That was a new
you know what
one? That wasn't new.
you know what I did like that you gave me last time
What?
was I'll tell you right now. I forgot the name of it. Oh my God, what is it called? I think Moon or something. Moonlight by Ralph.
Oh, Ralph Castelli.
Yeah, good song.
Great song.
Especially
good artist, not just a good song. good
especially
artist.
especially with the earphones in when like the beat hits. I'm like, oh, this is chill. This
It's
is
good. Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, Ralph Castelli. I recommended that a while ago. So.
Oh, I have another one that I want to recommend. I'll do it next week. I'll do it next week.
Yeah. No, we could just do a whole episode on music. That would be sick.
That would be sick.
So. I'll give you a song that you probably want. So do you know Slowdive?
Yeah, I know one. I know one of their songs.
When the
I
sun
can't remember
hits,
which
probably.
one. Slow dive. You said.
Yeah.
Ty.
No. Slow dive.
Dive.
Slow dive.
Oh, maybe not.
Okay.
No, I don't know if I've listened.
Slow dive was super big back in the 80s, 90s.
Oh, okay.
Like a British, so what they are is the quintessential shoegaze band. They're like when you think of shoegaze, do you know what shoegaze is? Like this like
A little
dreamy,
bit.
like dreamy, atmospheric, super heavy guitar, forward, kind of like just gives off like dreamy existential vibes. Like the shoegaze is like,
Oh, okay.
it's actually called shoegaze because the guitar, like, cause it's like super guitar forward, and a lot of the guitar bands, like the shoegaze bands, they're like looking down at their pedals and like messing with their pedals, and so it looks like they're just looking down at their shoes.
That's right.
So it's called like shoegaze. That's where the name comes from. But it's great. So I mean, I love shoegaze. I just love shoegaze. But if you're gonna get into shoegaze, Slowdive is like the top quintessential. Like that, they basically are like one of the inventors of shoegaze. And so like When the Sun Hits is their most popular song. But Allison is great. Sugar for the Pill is amazing. I'm gonna be listening to like
I'll listen to 'em.
Souvlaki, that album is like I think their most famous album.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, they're great. I would recommend Slowdive if you haven't heard of them. They're big in terms of like the shoegaze genre.
I wonder if I listened to their top song, if I would recognize.
You might have heard them. I think like when when their top song got big on TikTok. You know what I mean? But
I hate when that happens.
But they listen to When the Sun Hits, listen to Allison, and listen to Sugar for the Pill. I think you would really enjoy it, especially with the great guitar, like the instrumentals on this band are amazing. They're great.
That's sick. So, all right, I'll give them a listen.
Yeah,
I haven't heard it. It doesn't ring a bell in my head.
Yeah, so they're great. I actually just bring it. I'm mentioning it because we were just like, I was just watching like their music videos right now. I've been into Slowdive for a while. But yeah, so like they're just great. So that's just a recommendation I can make generally. Cool, awesome, John. Thanks for talking. Thanks for being on.
Thanks, man. We'll do this on Tuesday.
Next week, Tuesday. Put it on your calendars. Hopefully, those listeners of this pod are not going to get tired of you, or get tired of me more naturally.
Oh, they're like, that guy needs to go, man.
That's what we say every time you're on.
I know.
Cool.
It's true though. That's what they're saying.
Yeah. Cool. Well, just we'll end it here. Thanks for being on.
Okay.
And talk to you next week.
Yeah.